Hey everyone, Couch Investor back to another video for today. So in today's video, I want to focus on Apple. I'm not going to focus this video on the new high yield savings account. Good announcement, but I think we should focus on something else, something that has happened as well. And I think it's a pretty big deal for the long-term success and the long-term story, continued growth for a company like Apple, which is already as big as $2.6 trillion. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about them announcing their first relocation, opening their first relocation in India. Why is this important? Well, India has become the most populated country on the planet. And just for some context, according to a report by Statista, there were around 160 million smartphones sold in India in 2021. The number of smartphone users in India was estimated to reach over 748 million in 2022. As of 2021, smartphone users are using an estimated 6.23 billion smartphone subscriptions, which is expected to climb to 7.7 billion by 2027. Now, that's all great, but how many people actually own an iPhone in India? Well, according to a report by Business Standard, Apple shipped a record 5.4 million iPhones to India in 2021. This is a 48% growth compared to the previous year, and Apple's market share in India was 4.4%. Now, again, why is this important? Because their move, let's say, to depend a bit less on China is now going to depend a lot on the success in India. And just seeing the numbers here, well, I think the future is pretty bright. Now, of course, they'll have to make the iPhone way cheaper for it to be, well, more accessible to the general public in India. Now, seeing that now they started to manufacture the iPhone in India, I can see it becoming way cheaper there, and probably there will be deals with the likes of Jio, for example, where if you have a subscription for internet, for telecom, whatnot, you'll get the iPhone for free. Now, why is this important? Well, it's as important as giving away something like Android for free, which we've talked about in the previous video. Here you give the device for free, let's say. Let's call it free, maybe it will cost X amount of dollars or the equivalent of the currency. But what happens next is the adoption of more and more services, subscription. And this is where Apple makes a lot more money. Well, a lot more money. Last year, for example, actually this was mentioned in the last earnings call, they set an all-time revenue record of $20.8 billion in services, which is close to 18% of overall sales. They also said here that thanks to our deep commitment to innovation, incredible customer loyalty and satisfaction, and a large number of switchers, we now have more than 2 billion active devices as part of our growing installed base, double what it was just 7 years ago, and the majority of it is obviously iPhones. And so, of course, when I saw the news yesterday, Apple's card new high-yield savings account is now available, offering a 4.15% APY. Then I started to read a bit, and starting today, it says here Apple Card user. So first of all, two requirements here. One, obviously an iPhone user, and two, an Apple Card user. So yes, this is again a great incentive for you to keep buying the iPhone, keep using more services that Apple offers, for example here, the Apple Card user. And so it makes you stick or maybe trapped in the Apple ecosystem, because the Apple ecosystem has very, very high walls. Very, very difficult for you to suddenly jump out of it. Now, some people already say, oh, this is dangerous for banks, etc. Well, right now they're still working with banks. In this case, Goldman Sachs. They're also working with MasterCard. Now, when it comes to Apple Pay Later, for example, the Buy Now Pay Later service, there is Apple Financing LLC, I believe it's called, and they are the one, there's no middleman. They are the one lending here. Now, do I think that they'll get a bank charter or they want to become a bank in the future? Right now, I don't think so. I think they'll have to deal with a lot of other things that they want to innovate and introduce, such as VR, AR, XR glasses as well. And then, of course, there's always these rumors of the Apple Car, whenever that will come out. Again, I don't think that will come out anytime soon, if ever. I think they're very, very focused in the CarPlay, which again is something that is hooking people inside the ecosystem, because there was a stat, I'll try and pull it up on the screen, that a lot of, let's say, car buyers or potential car buyers are looking for the CarPlay option. And if it doesn't have CarPlay option, they won't probably buy that car. So as always, sneaky Apple is always making its way towards new markets, towards more and more money coming into that huge empire. Now, if you enjoy this type of videos, I would really appreciate it if you hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you have not, and if you want to support me even further, do check out the link down in the description and in the pinned comment to get the top 10 best stocks to buy now, or go to fool.com/couchinvestor. Now remember, in yesterday's video, depending when you're watching this, my last video about Google and the fight for the default search engine on devices such as Apple and Samsung, now they're fighting with Bing to be the default on those devices. Of course, Apple a big player there, getting loads and loads of money. We've talked about this yesterday, Google paying around $15 to $20 billion to Apple. So what might happen now? Can Apple still become a winner here? Because again, they are the one with millions and millions of devices, iPhones, and Google, Bing, would love to have or to get all of that traffic through that device. So we have a little note here from an analyst at Bank of America that says here that renegotiations would involve getting a higher amount per search. He estimates that Apple already gets around 80% of TAC to distribution partners. Now, to give you some context, this is because, well, probably Microsoft and Google will fight it out, and Apple would have more bargaining power right now to negotiate maybe better terms with Google. But like I said in my last video, I think Google shouldn't really be going that way anymore. They should maybe risk it for the biscuit, try it out without paying those huge sums of money. Now, it does continue by saying here that if Microsoft were to become a credible alternative to Google in search, it could make the Justice Department's antitrust case against Google that much harder and remove an overhang from Apple. Of course, this is an antitrust case because, well, Google dominates the search market, dominates in advertising as well. And now if, let's say, Bing does pose a, let's call it a threat to Google's dominance, basically becoming another big competitor out there, well, that case isn't as strong anymore. And since Google is dealing with Apple, well, paying Apple enormous amounts of money to be the default, of course, this is an overhang for Apple as well. But if they can prove that, hey, look, Bing is here as well, they're also a big player here, that case might be dropped. Of course, there's another case against Google as well, but that's maybe a story for another day. In any case, people want to go and get that traffic that runs through those iPhones. Now, if somehow Apple does go with Bing, because the contract is up for renewal at the end of this year, and it seems that most users are just used to Chrome, so they just don't download it and change it in the settings, then yes, obviously Apple will lose money that way. And that's a win for Google, an L for Apple, but that's just speculations right now. But overall, there's still a long way to grow for Apple, believe it or not. Growing a lot in India, manufacturing in India, growing in that market, more services, more people that adopt more services, more subscription, are more inclined to stay within this prison that we call Apple ecosystem. And that's one way for them to grow and grow. Of course, there will be that announcement of AR, VR, which in my opinion will be the next leg of huge growth in the future. How much will that cost? Probably an organ or two. And so that will be it for this video. Of course, do share your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoy this type of videos, leave it a thumbs up, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.